Two different hardware stores looking for. This is not a 4x40 thread. It's also not, I don't think it's a 3x48. It may be a metric size. Anyways, neither one of them had something exactly like this, but I did find a 3x46 standard head. The thing that it screws into is brass. And since this is a steel head screw, just like on this other one, steel is stronger than brass. So I basically remade some threads. I went in slowly and started tightening it down. And I think I should have maybe taken off just a little bit of the thread with a Dremel. If you see there, it doesn't go quite flush, but it is holding it. And it was getting squeaking and tight, at the very last. I don't want to snap anything off or break it. So that's what I did. And what good is a fix of this without showing that it's really fixed by picking a lock? So we have two little locks here. This is that little clear lock that I got in the other day. And this thing, there's something funny about it. Everybody knows these things are notoriously easy to pick. They advertise them as a lock picking aid, and sometimes they even give you picks with it to pick it. But I was just messing around with it today with 2 tension wrenches, okay? I wasn't even using a pick. I took a bottom of the keyway tension wrench, and then I took whatever you want to call it, tension wrench, like a medium or a small one, and I was just sticking it in there and kind of like zipping. And you have a tendency to overset this first pin over here. I think I was using the smaller one, the smallest one in here. Like I said, these are excellent for if you've never seen what the inside of a lock looks like, if you've never taken a lock apart before. And there's some things that you just can't do, without a clear lock. I mean, you just can't see. But as far as like a picking aid or anything, I disagree that they're a picking aid, because they help you with lock picking, because now it's not doing it, even though I was doing it earlier. I wasn't even looking at it, I was just sticking it in there and it was going bam, there it is. See, now that's not even, there's no lift, I was just basically lifting on this. It's not even a pick. So, if you can open a lock, and it really is a lock, you close it, and it locks, and it won't turn without, being picked. So, there you go. The advantage of these is they're pretty small and tiny, you can carry it around, and if you want to demonstrate to someone. I also thought, I had a friend of mine's father who had been seeing me work on locks and everything, and he said, let me try that. And I gave him a very easy to open master lock, and he couldn't get it. He messed around with it for a little while and got frustrated and threw it away. Threw the pick down and, said he'd had it. It wasn't a real rage quit or anything, but he was mad. So I thought, something like this would be perfect for that, because even him, given a basic diamond, could go in here and open this puppy pretty quick. So that's what they're good for, and to demonstrate things like how the pawl mechanism works on a lock, what you see when the pins go up and down. These are good for that, And this was only like $4 and something. Here's a real lock, a Brinks, brass padlock, and of course we got to test out the new Mad Bob modification. There's really nothing happened to it other than, before I thought it was going to work fine without even that other screw in there, but I noticed when opening this that it was starting to come loose. That was just basically a friction fit in there, and when that comes loose, this pin down here on the bottom, both of these are just like, whoops, I banged my improvised camera mount. Both of these are just, it's like a brass press pin. It's not welded in place, so potentially that spring could come loose. And if that spring came loose, you could lose your tension wrench. All the pieces would still be here, you know, because you have this screw holding it in, but you really don't want one screw holding it in. Another improvised thing would be to remove both screws and go through there in the center with a piece of wire and jury rig. You'd then have a lanyard on the back here. It'd look hokey, you know, and funky and all that other stuff, and tacky. Any other slur words you like to say for taking something that's precision made and making it look ghetto, I guess is what I call it. Alright, so I'm going to try a Bogota on this, although I think probably a single pin pick would work better on this Brinks here, but we're just going to test out. Also, like I said, I've noticed before, you have a longer shaft on these, so anything that you're working on, if you tend to be heavy-handed, you might want to support this with your thumb when you're doing this, because you have a potential for bending. Now, I don't know if it's more skill or whatever, to be less heavy-handed. My thought is that as long as you get the lock to open, I don't care what you used, you know, it worked. But of course, you know, I think the best way to open a lock is single pin picking, if you can do it. It's not always the fastest, but it should be the most reliable and least damaging to the lock, because you're going in there slowly and lifting the pins. I mean, when we rake and everything, you can look at your picks afterwards and find little brass shavings and stuff on them. I mean, it is eventually, you know, we don't care, because we're just trying to open a lock, and if you're a locksmith, maybe you're just opening it that one time. And these are really, you know, fairly cheap locks, padlocks and stuff, but if you were working on your door, I don't know why this thing is giving me a hard time. Usually it opens up pretty easily. Maybe the screw that I put in there has modified it, and now the Bogota doesn't work. I mean, that's logic gone bad, because it's illogical. I'll go back to Mr. Bogota. This one is usually a fairly easy to open. I could demonstrate on that El Cheapo lock again, but I don't know what's happening with me today. I've been in a lot of pain, but that's from an abscess too. Nobody wanted to hear that. Too much information there. Just want to see you open this lock. Well, you know what? This lock is not wanting to open up. And it's a 1, 2, 3. It's only a 4-pin lock. I have opened it before. I don't know what's gone wrong with me. Let me try the snaky. I get to try out these different tools and stretch this out to a 950-minute video or something like this. The last 3 days. It's going to take me a couple of months to upload it. By then, maybe Britain will have taken America back. July 4th, we'll say, hey, you know what? Our president's gone crazy. Y'all can have this back. But we don't want to involve politics with picking. Picking and politics are separate. Well, unfortunately, I have picked a tough little Brinks, you know. I'm just going to have to drag somebody over here that wants to be picked. Maybe a Master Lock commercial number 3. I mean, come on, man. I've got to prove that my modification is not destroyed. Maybe that common head screw there, it wasn't flared either, you know. Maybe that just defeated the Bogota and defeated the ability of this Mad Bob's Jackknife to work anymore. Unless usual purpose screws. I had a fly try to land on me just then. Well, you know, lifetime guarantee, maybe I should have sent it back to England, because this is another lock that you can sneeze on usually and open. And I don't want to come up with a bunch of weird commentaries about aliens and everything else. I have my witnesses watching me. If I get an opening, I've already gone into like 11 minutes. It was really about this, just this jackknife, and not about picking, but I mean, we can't have a lock picking video without picking a lock. And it's Saturday, so I have plenty of time on my hand, and if it takes forever to do this, it's going to take forever to do this. I'm going to get a lock to open with this little jackknife. Or you'll witness me go out of control. And I couldn't say insane because I'm already not totally sane. Man, I hate to drag off this. There we go. We got one. I think so. Yes. There. My modification did not destroy this jackknife. Now, when you do this, of course, you probably have voided your lifetime warranty, at least on this end. But like I said, I didn't want to wait forever. I don't even have the money to send it off to England for shipping, due to the fact that I switched jobs and they hold your first paycheck back and rent is due and blah blah blah. Nobody wanted to hear any of that either. Alright, now I'm confused which way this went. Oh, there we go. Sorry, I was doing all that off camera. Everything still works as advertised. Well, like I said, perhaps the only modification that Mad Bob's really needs to do to this this jackknife is don't use this small of a screw. I mean, I know they've got, you could probably go another half a millimeter, maybe a millimeter further. For all those of you who are in metric, I don't know, maybe a tenth of an inch, a 0.01, a 0.05, I don't know. This screw is just a little bit too long, but it's holding it together and it's not rattling. And all I got to do is take a little sandpaper to the screw head if I want to round it off and make it a little bit more flush, because it's just basically. And I would suggest that they go to something like a common or a Phillips head screw. Yes, it might round out, but you know, if you put it in there securely and use Loctite, people will probably never disassemble this tool, you know, other than you could even take this tool, you could replace the picks, I'm sure, without having to remove this end. So that's my suggestion to Mad Bob. I'll try to email them and tell them what I did, and they'll slap my wrist for modifying their tool. But hey, it's mine. That's why I paid for it. It's my tool, and I can do what I want with it. I'm an adult, way past an adult, too old an adult. And Brinksy, I'm going to have to open you up later. So there you go, 14 minutes of me just rambling on about how I modified this. Oh, and one other thing I wanted to say about this. If you're looking for a source of these screws, I thought about this later on, and it was too late. Printed circuit boards and computers and shit, they use really small screws, and they probably would have something like this in there. You know, the chassis, the mounts that they use to mount a circuit board onto a chassis and stuff like that. That's where you might be able to find it. And I have a dead computer in a closet that I could have messed with instead of going to 2 different stores and finally paying 38 cents for the incorrect part.